Yay!
Hey there, folks. We are live on Google Hangouts and also through YouTube to the whole world. We welcome everyone who is watching this special event brought to you from Gary Karp Coaching, the Group of One, and the Love Foundation. I am Gary Karp from Gary Karp Coaching. My co-host is the lovely Katie West from the Group of One, co-founder of the Group of One. Katie, please say hello to the good people again.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. As Gary just said, I'm Katie. I'm the creator of the Group of One, and we're here to do a 16-part show over a period of, what, 32 weeks, isn't it?
Oh, it is 32 weeks? Because I was trying to figure this out when I was setting up the promotions this morning to get the word out. And on one hand, I know we had talked about it being every other week, but when I looked at what you wrote on the meetup group, it said that it was weekly. So right now, for you and me and the people that are watching, are we doing this every week or are we doing this every other week?
All right. Gary, I've got you on the background a minute. Sorry, I've just got to try and, there we go. Don't worry, sorted. I had it going on in the background, so I clearly had another page up, and I was hearing you in stereo. Sorry.
That's okay. Let me just repeat that question for the people who just tuned in and also for my community. When I was putting out the promotions this morning, I went by the Group of One meetup page where this was being promoted, and it said that it is a weekly series. So are we doing it every week for 16 weeks or every other week for 32 weeks?
Once every 2 weeks.
Okay, so folks, you heard it here. We're going to be meeting every 2 weeks from now. I guess that would put us somewhere into June or July, somewhere around the middle of the...
August 11th, I think.
August 11th would be the last one. We're going to be meeting every 2 weeks, talking about things that matter to us and things that hopefully matter to you. Things like oneness, unconditional love, the law of attraction, things that really get to the heart of what we are as human beings and divine creatures. Now, at the beginning, it's just going to be me and Katie. There may be other people who join us as the weeks go on. That would be great if anyone decided to join us as the weeks went on from our listeners, or maybe Harold Becker from the Love Foundation can come on, or any number of guests
that'd be great.
pop on. But right now, Katie, I'm going to throw it to you, and if you want to have an opening statement on what you believe today's topic, which is bridging the gap between science and spirituality. So I'm going to give you the floor, and if you could talk a little bit about exactly what you believe science and spirituality is, and are they opposite sides of the same coin?
Well, it's interesting, actually. What I wanted to start with, I wanted to just go back to a conversation that you and I had, I think, just before Christmas. And we discussed about doing this series, and one of the things that came up was, you know, how do we actually go about talking about this? Because we didn't want, you know, I love using the word God, whereas a lot of people don't like that word, and I can understand why. I can understand why people don't, just because of, you know, society and da-da-da. Anyway, it was brought to my attention that using that word may put a lot of people off. And the thing is, it's not about, for me, the word God is just a label. God just is, and then you make up the rest of it as you want to. That's how I see it. But so taking the word God out, I think that's when we then came to this conclusion about making this first week about science, bridging the gap between science and spirituality, because it takes the word sort of God out of the equation, so to speak, although it's not out. And so then we can talk about it from sort of layman's terms. Yeah?
Well, yes, I agree with you that a lot of people have an issue with the word God. Now, for me, you use God as a label, and when I say the word God, for people who are listening to this, and hopefully will view week in and week out as we go towards August, when I use the word God, I could be using the word God, the universe, creator, love, yourself,
Yeah.
or me, and that's all the same thing. To me, they're all synonymous. That when I talk about God, I'm talking about nature, I'm talking about the universe. It's one giant energy field for me. But a lot of
Exactly.
people do believe that God is this invisible man in the sky that looked down upon us and cast judgment and either tells us we're going to hell or we're going to heaven, depending on how we respond to him or her.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, that gets me to the point where those people that believe that are not wrong to believe that. Now, that is what, for my belief, because I believe everybody's belief is right for them. It's not something that I agree with, and it's not something that many of my friends would agree with. But if somebody believes that God is out there looking down on them and will be angry at them if they don't do what God is telling them to do, if that experience is serving that person at some level for that person to be there. So if that is serving someone's highest good, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Well, no, and there isn't. When I was in college, when I was a freshman in college, I took a Western civilization class that was mandatory for me to take. My professor, a great man by the name of Miles Ellison, on the first day of class handed out a list of 10 laws for life. And he said that if we paid attention to these 10 laws while we were taking this class, we would pass the class. If we paid attention to these 10 laws while we were in life, we would pass life.
Yeah.
Rule number one was, if you believe it to be so, it is so.
Exactly.
And I always took that and made it a mental note in my head. So you're absolutely right. Whatever your belief in God or science or anything is
anything
right for you. It doesn't have to be right for everybody else.
No, that's right.
Here is where I think we get into an issue and what the challenge is. Because we can see it in the world today. We could see it in the world when we look at the religious right, quote unquote, and we can see it when we look at the human secularists and the Wiccans and the atheists that are out there. They all believe and cling to this concept that they are right. And in order for them to be right, everybody else has to be wrong. You can look at what happened in Paris the other day with the assassination and the terror attack on the Satire magazine. Okay? And you can see it on what happened in 9/11 in the United States and what happened to the subway bombings in London, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, that people are so beholden to their belief that they cannot let another point of view come in. They cannot let go of judgment, which I really think we are talking about when we talk about bridging the gap between science and spirituality. Because if you look at science and what's going on today, and especially with Ken Ham and the Creationist Museum, and the fact that there's a large group of people out there that believe the world is only 6,000 years old, and that God created the dinosaurs, and that Noah's Ark actually happened, as opposed to what science tells us according to the scientific method and fossils, they're setting up a belief that is against one another and is going like this, when really everything is meant to do this. But in order to get here, we need to let go of judgment and say, hey, I'm right for me. I don't have to be right for you.
Well, it's letting go of the judgment that we hold about ourselves as well, about the limitations that we place on ourselves and the conditioning that we place on ourselves. Once we can, this is how I believe it, once I let go of all limitations and all conditions, and I stopped believing what I thought was true about me, that I was never good enough, that I wouldn't amount to anything, that I was, I was pushed to the point, and that was through society, and as you said, people that are judgmental because of my learning difficulties, whatever, but because of that experience, I was pushed to a point of, I felt incredibly lonely, okay? But thankfully and gratefully, I had a spiritual background. I believe in spirituality. I had that very much in my life. So I didn't feel alone because I had the spiritual aspects. But society, once I let go of judging myself and feeling that I wasn't good enough. I was being told by so many people that I wasn't good enough that I believed it. And that for me, that was the turning point. Once I thought, hold on a minute, no, I can do this. I can do this. That I totally shift and change my whole perception on myself, because I believed I couldn't, so therefore I didn't. But then I let go of all of that, and I was able to sort of break through all of that, and now I feel totally free. I love myself unconditionally. There's no limitation. I can do anything I like.
And that's a wonderful thought, and it's what we, in my opinion, what we all should aspire to. And we're going to talk more about that in depthly when we get talking about unconditional love, especially the section where we talk about unconditional love for ourselves.
Yeah.
When it comes to science and spirituality, in my mind, I see them as connected. I see them running the same path as opposite sides of the same coin. Society, because we have set this thing that we call religion up, has really separated them and put them on opposite sides, where we cannot be with God and accept science. That somehow to be religious or to be spiritual, that we must not believe what science is telling us, that we must not believe that medicine is a good thing, that stem cell research is a good thing, that climate change is an actual thing, that we have to put our belief all in God and say, God is going to take care of us, and if God destroys us, well then obviously we did something wrong.
Yeah.
And I really don't care for that, because to me spirituality and science is opposite sides of the same coin, and it doesn't matter if it's hard sciences like biology and chemistry, or soft sciences, or what I determine soft sciences as psychology or neuroscience. It's all connected in that
it's all connected
oneness that we are always talking about.
That's right. Yeah. Science and spirituality, I see as exactly as you see it. They are the same. They both sort of hold the same sort of core beliefs, as in, because they are both beliefs at the end of the day. They both believe everything's interconnected, interrelated. It's all, we are one. Yeah. We are not just all one, all connected with each other. There is only one of us. Yes, that we are everything. Like you, for example, Gary. Everybody who's listening to this, you're just mirror reflections of myself. You are all me, just in various different forms, different blah blah blah. Yeah. So that's, for me, science is very much into that as well, understanding that concept that there is only one. I mean, it is now the new science, the consciousness, the new science sort of coming through, filtering through. Whereas with religion, now a lot of people that don't understand spirituality believe spirituality is like religion. Now, when I'm talking to people, I say that, well, spirituality believes in a divine creator within, like it's from the inside out, whereas religion believes in a divine creator from the outside in. That's the best way to describe it. Whereas science believes in what is, spirituality believes in what is, and religion tends to believe in what is not.
I'm going to take a little bit of a disagreement with you there.
I may have not explained myself properly, because it's the first time I'm talking about this.
That's okay. This is why we're here. We're here to talk. We're here to give an open discussion and hopefully give the people who are listening to us on Google and listening to us on YouTube some food for thought. And we welcome all of your comments, folks. If you're listening to this and you want to comment on any of the discussion, please feel free to go to the Group of One website, or the Group of One Facebook page, like the Facebook page, and then you can comment on what you think of this discussion that we're having. We'd love to hear from you. And actually, in part 4 of this discussion, we're going to invite all our listeners on and sort of have a group town meeting to get everybody's opinion on what's going on.
Yeah, because we can get up to 10 people, can't we, you said?
Yes, we can get 10 people on the Google Hangout. Everybody else who is watching through YouTube will set some sort of messaging system up or email system up so you can participate as well. Now, going back to what you said with spirituality and science and religion, you're absolutely right, and I love the definition that you said about spirituality. I put it a little simpler, which is, spirituality really, and it goes back to what we were saying before, is whatever you believe is true for you inside. For me, that means looking inward rather than looking outward.
Yeah.
I believe that we are God in our own life, and we are creating and co-creating our own world at every moment. I love to go back to the Bible where it says God created man in his own image. Well, if that's true, then we are made with all of the powers, if you will, that God had, the omnipotence, the omniscient abilities of God in our own world to create our own life in the way we want. We look inward, where religion looks, you're absolutely right, looks outward. It looks outward to this great deity that's in the sky, whether it's one deity, as in Judeo-Christian, or whether it's many deities, as in the Greek and Roman mythologies that were out there. And there are many of them because, the Judeo-Christian, and I'll go as far as to go Islamic, monotheistic, is not the only thing that's out there. The Indian culture has their own mythology or theology built around it. Now, science doesn't say this is what is. Science actually looks at something and says, how is this possible? Why is this here? It starts with a question or a theory, and then it sets about proving that theory. And if it can't prove it, then it goes on to try to explain it a different way. Spirituality and religion both belong to faith. I don't need to prove my spirituality to anyone. It is mine. It is what keeps me going. And can I explain all of it scientifically? No. It's the same way that and people who are religious don't have to explain their belief in Jesus Christ or Moses or Buddha or anybody else. They just do. And that's really the biggest difference between science and spirituality and religion. Now, at its heart, I think they're talking about the same things. So now the question becomes, how do we get both the spiritual and the religious to let go of their preconceived notions and their judgments that somehow they are more aware and they are more awakened than the rest of the world, okay, and the rest of the world is just sleepwalking? And how do we get them to come and talk with the scientists? And how do we get the scientists to let go of their belief that they are right because they are following the scientific principle and we have tangible proof, and look at the spiritual people and say, you may have some things right. Now, if you look at quantum physics, there is some wild stuff being talked about and theorized in quantum physics about the nature of the universe and multiverses and how things could exist in two different states at the same time, that meant to prove all the things that spirituality and all the spiritual gurus have said for years. But how do we get the everyman who does not understand quantum physics, who doesn't want to understand quantum physics, to say, science is eventually going to prove God, and that's not necessarily a bad thing? And how do we get scientists to say, just because we are explaining everything doesn't mean we are killing God, we're just defining God? How do we do that?
Well, okay.
Big question, I know.
Okay, no, I know, but this is my belief. This is what I think. We can't. Okay, we can't. It will happen naturally. It is going to happen, but we can't make it happen. Nobody can make something happen when it's like basically. I can't wake people up. I can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. If they don't want to help, they don't want to raise their awareness. They don't want answers. If they're just happy with the way their life is, then that's the right choice for them. Unless that person wants to know, then for me, I can't make that. Well, I can try, but all I'm going to do is probably make them not like me very much for trying to make them change.
Okay, now here's where I'm going to, again, disagree with you. Because by saying we can't have any part in having this happen, in bridging that gap, you're essentially...
It's going to happen anyway.
Yep. We hope, but we do not know. Okay? I would rather go on the point and say, look, here is my purpose in life. My purpose in life is to make people more self-aware. That's what I do through my books. That's what I do through my coaching. To make people more self-aware of their true identity, whatever that is, and to show people or to help people find that what they believe is true is really an illusion. So if any way I could stimulate a conversation to get people talking, it doesn't matter if they agree or not, but if they just have that conversation, that is what will lead eventually to the bridging of the gap. But if we all sit here with our thumbs up our butt and we say, there's nothing that can be done, it's going to happen by its own self because God wills it, and that's what I'm hearing, even though you're not saying it, then we're in the same situation than we were before, where we're leaving it to a quote-unquote judgmental God whose belief of right and wrong is going to guide us. I don't believe there is a God that believes in right and wrong. I really don't. And if we want the world to be bridged between spirituality and science, then we have to start the conversation somehow, some way. That's what we're doing here with this discussion. And I hope that this encourages people to go out and talk about it, not to convince people that they are right, but simply to put the seed in their head.
Well, that's right. Gary, I agree with you. I agree with me and I agree with you. Because the thing is, what I'm saying is, the way the question was asked to me was, how can we do this? Well, my belief is there is nothing I have to do in this world. I don't have to do anything. Just being myself, I could just be completely silent, just be myself in the world, going about my day-to-day business as I do, and I do this. You know, I don't have to actually go out there and do anything. There isn't something I need to do. I don't have a purpose. I have no purpose other than just be myself, love my life, and enjoy what I love doing. And in that, I'm leading by example.
That is absolutely
see what I mean?
Correct.
Just by doing that, But with regards to conversations, what you're saying, yeah, I love those sort of constructive conversations. And when I'm at work, my clients, I love having those conversations because I get a lot of scientists from university coming in. So I'm having loads of fantastic conversations. But it's not like I'm actually actively trying to change that person's perspective.
Okay, so perhaps we should say, instead of what do we have to do, what do we choose to do? Because you're absolutely right. We don't have to do anything. Our purpose in this life is simply to experience it in the way we choose to experience it. That's why we're here. Okay? So it's better to say we choose to forward this conversation, or I am choosing to do this series of videos to start a conversation. By the way, that's Thomas. He'll be joining us for most of the weeks. That's my kitty cat who is leaning on the desk next to us, folks. He will be making appearances as it goes on. But you're right into that. Now, I choose to put out the books to help people. I choose to dedicate my life and my business to helping people break down the illusion and see that we are all one and there is no difference between me and you, between religion, spirituality, and science, that it's all the same thing. And maybe that's the better way of saying it. So besides the conversations, what do you choose to do? How could you choose to bridge that gap besides making conversation?
Well, basically, I with myself, how can I put it? I encourage people. I encourage people to follow their feelings. Look to how they feel about something before they make a decision, no matter what the decision is. No matter what the decision is. But because all my decisions are feeling based. I looked how I feel about it, and even 9 times out of 10, I don't know why I feel like I have to do something. Well, not have to. I feel like I'm being guided towards doing something or feeling guided not to do something. Most times I don't know why that is. But through years and years of following this practice, it's always put me at the right place at the right time. And it always seems to safeguard me, takes me out of harm's way. So I've had quite a few instances. Had I not followed my feelings, I would have been right in the thick of it, in like in the thick of the chaos, and some accidents and bad things would have happened had I not followed my feelings.
And I understand. And I agree that feelings are the reasons we do everything. People like to think we're logical creatures. We're brought up in this world to make sure that we think on everything, when really every decision we make is a feeling-based judgment on how things go. That's right.
And because of my... Sorry. Sorry. I didn't know if you were talking then or not.
No, I was just going to say that it brings up a very interesting point, because there are many ways that we are taught that we can get in touch with our feelings, and I know that is a bad phrase, but I'm going to use it. And the New Age gurus and the yogis out there, and even some doctors now are coming around to the practice of meditation and yoga is very good for you, and that's supposed to be a very spiritual concept. So how could you explain meditation and the benefits of meditation to someone who is purely a scientist? How could you get them to accept this concept so they can be more in touch with their gut instinct and follow that gut instinct more often?
Well, I can't answer that, Gary, because I don't meditate.
Okay, so how do you get in touch with your feelings then? You said that you listen to your feelings. How do you put yourself in a state to listen to your feelings?
Okay, well, again, thankfully, society pushed me to the point where I had to think on my feet. And so I had to listen to myself. I had to listen to my intuition. So it's almost like society, like the first, when I was like growing up, I've led probably what most people would say like a street, I went to the University of Life. I've had a very, I've not been through the system, basically.
And I understand what you're saying. What I think would be interesting to our listeners who want to bridge this gap is, how do you get to that point? I was reading a newsletter that was sent to me by somebody that I follow and admire a great deal. And she's doing an online class on getting more in touch with your intuition. And the exercise she put forth today was to stand or to sit and to relax and to take a couple of deep breaths and then ask yourself, based on a word or a question that you have, if this thing is right for you, and just to take a moment and then to listen to your body. And are you swaying forward and right if the answer is yes, and are you falling backwards and left if the answer is no? to find out the signs that your body is telling you so you could be more in touch. Now, I understand that society put you in a situation that it enabled you or required you to think on your feet, but how did that process develop is what I'd like to know.
Right. Okay.
How do you go through that process of knowing what your gut instinct is saying? I think our listeners would enjoy a process that they can do.
Well, okay, when I had to make a decision, again, doesn't matter what it is, when something comes in and I think, right, okay, do I want to do that? If I don't get an answer straight away, I know it's not 100% yes, so then I know it's a no. Because if it's not 100% either yes or 100% no, it's a no. Okay, so even if okay, how can I put it? So, you know, I've heard the saying, when in doubt, don't. So if I'm really getting like an 80% feeling to do something, like, oh yeah, that feels like it'd be really good, but then in the back of my mind I'm thinking, oh, then I won't do it because it's not 100% in alignment with who I am.
Okay. That is a very good tip for our listeners who are out there that want to start bridging the gap between science and spirituality, want to start following their intuition. Just take a moment, close your eyes, and ask yourself the question, do I want to do this? And if you get a positive yes, great. If you get a positive no or a full no, then you know it's no. And if you get something that's in between, you can take the route where you say, when in doubt, the answer is no. Or the way I would take that situation is if the answer is not yet. So just put it on the back burner. Don't do it now, but don't close the door. And that's a wonderful idea and a wonderful process for dealing with your intuition. Now, I know that scientists have recently discovered that the gut instinct is being the right one, and our thoughts about what we're doing is really creating our reality. We spoke a little bit before about metaphysics and quantum physics, and the spiritual side of people will say the world was created by God in 7 days or 2 weeks or however long it took. Spiritual people will tend to believe that they're in control of their own reality. They're manifesting it all the time through the law of attraction, which we're going to be talking about in a couple of weeks. And that the law of attraction is taken simply by putting consistent thought and holding that positive thought while taking action. Now, science tells us that psychologically, nothing has any meaning until we give it a meaning, that everything is neutral. That is cognitive behavioral therapy. That is behaviorism 101. So concentrating on what we're talking about is focusing our thoughts, and our thoughts are going to focus where we look and what we believe in, which is the same way of saying energy flows where intention goes. So again, we have the situation where science and spirituality are really the same situation. What people will call the law of attraction, and we'll get more into that in a couple of weeks, is really what a behavioral psychologist will call cognitive thought process. So one way that you can sit and bridge the gap, and we talked about that decision-making process you were talking about before, and we talked about meditation and maybe some yoga, but another way of doing it is to try and control your thoughts and keep your thoughts aligned with where you want to go and what you choose to believe. Now, that's easier said than done, and I understand that because we're not robots, we're not automatons. But there are things that you can do in conjunction with trying to keep your thoughts straight. You can do some yoga, you can do some meditation, because as they're finding now, that is a concerted effort to bridge that gap between science and spirituality.
And focus on, I would say, focus on loving oneself, because these past sort of few years since I've been learning to love myself, I suppose. Well, remembering to love myself. In that process, it's about being kind to myself, being gentle on myself, not putting myself in harm's way, listening to my intuition, doing what felt right for me in every given moment, regardless of anyone else. Now, this is where the tough bit does come in, and it did start off a bit tough. I remember in the early days, number one was giving up, giving up worrying about what other people thought of me, because that was quite a biggie for me, and I just dropped all that. And that took a bit of time, but now I have. I totally dropped that. I really don't care what anybody thinks of me anymore. It doesn't matter, you know. What people think of me is none of my business. That's the way I see it. And in doing that, I've just, you know, I can just let go of. It gives me space to sort of heal, and for me to be gentle. You know, it just gives me space, and it's lovely. Freedom, I suppose, is the word.
Okay, and that is a wonderful way of being. It's a wonderful way if you can process that and hold that and be that. That's great, and we'll talk more about that again when we're talking about oneness and when we're talking about unconditional love, especially unconditional love. Because what it all comes down to is letting go of the judgment. Okay? Yeah. And unfortunately, when we're talking about science and spirituality, science is based on judgment. It's based on proof, okay, which this world lives in. We are a bottom line society. And science is doubly based on that bottom line because it will go to prove something, and if the theorem is proved incorrect, then they will change that theory, or they will just go to a new theory and say, okay, I was wrong here. And it's the total antithesis of what spirituality and religion is, because spirituality and religion is very much faith-based.
Yeah.
The sciences are not faith-based, and that's really the biggest difference between them both. But I would argue to say that science is actually as faith-based as spirituality is.
It is, exactly.
Because you have to believe that your experiments are going to be telling you the correct process. That if it happens 9 out of 10 times, then yes, it is right. You have to have that faith that it is correct. So I sometimes call it the religion of science, and it pisses all my secular friends off when I do that. Okay?
Well, I can imagine.
They're like, there's no religion here. I don't believe in God, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, but you believe in science. You have to have faith that your science...
Exactly. It's still a belief, no matter what people say, because at the end of the day, I mean, from my perspective, everything outside of me is an illusion. My reality is basically just based on my inner thoughts, beliefs, perhaps my conditioning, you know, past lives, my future lives, because it's all happening right now. There is no past and future. That's my belief. So, you know, I am everything that ever was, has been, or, you know what I mean? It's all happening right now.
Yes.
And basically it's all happening in here. Yeah, I'm being projected out to what I experience. But out there, how can I put it? I am not in the world is in me.
Right.
So there actually is no out there. So from a science, how I see it as being a belief, there is no such thing as experiments. There is no such thing as science.
That's an interesting concept. Okay.
It's all made up.
I'm going to.
But if you believe it's real, if you believe in it, it becomes true for you, and that's with everything, isn't it? It's like me.
I'm going to take just a little bit of a practical spin on that, because That explanation, while I agree with it, Katie, was a little bit too esoteric and metaphysical for a lot of people, including myself.
Okay. I keep forgetting. I keep thinking I'm on a Skype call with you.
Just to put it in small, digestible bits, when we talk about the faith or the religion of science, because you have to have a belief that what you're doing is right, let's look at something as simple as vaccines. Now, vaccines is a scientific fact, okay? They have been scientifically proven to help people get over diseases and to rid the world of potentially harmful diseases such as mumps, chickenpox, smallpox, etc. Yet there is a large contingent of people who also believe in science, but who do not believe that vaccines work and who actually believe that vaccines are the cause or one of the leading causes of autism. Now, I don't believe this. I think that group is nuts with a capital P for peanut, okay? But it goes to show you that even in science, you have different beliefs based upon what your individual experiments are telling you.
Exactly. Because I know a lot of people that do believe that.
Right. And to your point about saying it's all made up in our head, one group of people, the pro-vaccinators, have all this data that says, hey, vaccines work because they use all the data and all the experiments to show it. The anti-vaxxers also believe in science, but they used their experiments, their data, whether you believe in it or not, to prove no, vaccines don't work. They're actually more harmful than good. But they're both using a belief in science. So you're absolutely correct in that you're saying, now I am a strange bird. I believe in what I will call God, which again is my definition for nature, the universe, this energy that creates us all. But I also believe in science and in psychology and in the tools that allow us to understand ourselves and in our environments better, because I believe God gave them to us. There's no other reason for them to be there except for us to understand who we are and what our position is in relation to each other and this universe.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Was that
Jump in
was that a question? So I was waiting for. Sorry, you didn't ask me a question.
I was assuming you were going to piggyback on that, but I was wrong. Okay.
Yeah. Can you ask me a question? Because I've sort of lost track.
Sure. What I said before is that I believe that science and psychology and quantum physics were all given to us as a way of explaining our position in the world and our relation to the universe and each other by God, that they're not separate, that they're all part of the oneness.
Yeah.
Would you
That's
agree
right.
with that, or do you believe, as some do, that science and psychology are the devil's tools?
Well, I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe in hell.
So we agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't believe in heaven either. I believe in just what is. Everything just is being what it is. And just as you said, you know, when you give something meaning, it's then got a meaning, and then it becomes separate from the other thing. So but everything just is being what it is. Everyone's just being who they are. Everyone's just acting in their now and being who they are with, you know, whatever they're doing in the world. And that's how I sort of see everything. With regards to the two groups that are into science, one person believes in the vaccines, another group doesn't. Again, all I see written all over that is placebo.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you here, because while I do understand the placebo effect, and yes, I do believe it can work. I've seen it work. Hell, it's worked on me. Okay? I don't believe that all medical breakthroughs and all vaccines and all medicines are a placebo. I do believe that they do have a physiological and a chemical reaction with the body to fight antibodies, to fight sickness and illness, or to help us. I don't believe it's all up here.
Well, the thing is, I've not been to a doctor for years because I heal myself through the power of what I believe. So I just changed my thought. I just changed my beliefs about myself.
Let me ask you a question. Is the condition you had that you cured yourself from, was it a physical one or an emotional and mental one?
It was a physical one.
Okay. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Okay, well, I had... No, I just have to think of a way of putting it because I can't... Okay, I can't... Right, I choose not to say exactly what it is, but I will... Because I believe in thought, word, deed. What I think about, what I talk about will happen. And it's something I don't want to manifest and bring into my experience.
I agree with you there.
That's why I don't talk about certain things to people, and that's why I stay away from certain conversations because I can't hear it either because I'm very sensitive. But I can. Let me just get my words.
Okay.
Right. Okay. A few years ago, I got quite severe symptoms of a big major illness that begins with C that everybody seems to, it seems very big in the world. Yeah, the big C.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Was this diagnosed? Meaning, was it diagnosed by a doctor?
No.
Okay.
No, although my teacher, Hugh Gilbert, knew something was going on. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. He knew, but I just gave him a look, as in, you know, we had a bit of a telepathic conversation going on, I think. But anyway, all I'm saying, yeah. So, in that process of what I didn't want to go to the doctor. I couldn't be around anyone talking about it. I don't want to hear about it. It was almost, I switched my focus from being around it to not being around it, and focused on, I kept myself away from a lot of people. I hardly went to work. I spent a lot of time on my own. I listened to a lot of children's films, things with like soft, lovely, beautiful messages. I listened to a lot of Louise Hay affirmations because I had to reprogram my cells not to react what it thought it had. Okay, because and in that process, I had to keep telling myself, I am healthy, keep it in the present, not about, oh, I want to be healed. I am healed. What I think about, I bring about.
Okay.
Because I know that I'm energy, and that like attracts like. And it took me a good few years.
And I do agree with you, because there are enough cases out there, and I have personal experience with the same C word with friends of mine who said, I'm going to beat this, or I don't have this, and kept a positive image in their heads and ended up going into remission. Two quick stories that I'll tell regarding that, and how the power of thought and the power of spirituality can be used for science and helping to cure those diseases. And then we're going to start wrapping up. But before we do, I want to thank everybody for listening today. This was a little rough because it's our first time out there, but I promise you folks, we are going to get better at this. The conversation is going to flow a little bit more, and we hope to be as interesting, if not as more interesting, in the weeks going. But to get back to the healing thyself stories, there were two stories. I had a friend whose father was diagnosed with the C word, and the doctors diagnosed him with I think it was stage 2. And my friend walked to the doctor and said, how long does he have? And the doctor said he's got about 6 months. He said, you are not to tell him he has cancer. You are not to tell him his life expectancy.
Mm.
They just went on treating him as they did without ever mentioning the C word.
Yeah.
And the man who was given 6 months to live lived for 18 months.
Mm.
At one point, a nurse said to him on one of his follow-up visits, hey, you know, this is really remarkable that you actually beat cancer.
Mm.
And he went, well, cancer, what do you mean?
Oh, no. Yeah.
And the nurse explained to him the diagnosis. She had no clue at the deal that my friend and his doctor had made. And within 3 months, his father was dead.
Yeah.
You know, another story is my friend's father was diagnosed with cancer. He knew it absolutely well. He had 6 months to live. And his 25th wedding anniversary with his wife was 9 months out. And he made her a promise on his hospital bed that he would make their 25th anniversary.
Mm.
He died the day after their anniversary. So you are absolutely correct. Your thought and the energy you put out and the thought process you put out. We are so geared when we're talking about the C word that it is a death sentence, or that the cure, which is the chemotherapy, is more deadly than the disease.
Mm.
So the minute you start believing in that, you're going to set yourself up for failure. But if you can do what you have done and block it out as successfully as you can and say, I am healthy, I am healed, I am energy, I am goodness. Because let's face it, I am is the shortest sentence in the English language, and it's always also the most powerful sentence in the English language. Because whatever you put after I am, and we'll talk about this later in our hangout sessions that we're doing here, whatever you put after the word I am, you are declaring to the universe you are, and therefore you are becoming. That's why words are so important, especially to me as a writer and an author. If you say I am smart, I am stupid, I am dumb, I am not worthy, these things are going to manifest themselves in you.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing, Gary, before we wrap up?
Of course.
I did want to say, because when I was going through healing myself, because I am now healed, totally fine, but when I was going through that, and it took a good, I would say 6 years, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 6 or 7 years before I really felt the all clear, okay, myself, and I felt balanced. But in that 6, 7 years, although it sounds all very light and fluffy, saying, I am healed, I am this, I am that, to anyone listening, I tell you now, there is nothing light and fluffy about it.
Yeah.
I had to put myself first in every single given moment. I lost a lot of friends. I lost people. You know, a lot of people couldn't understand what I was doing because I couldn't talk about it, because I didn't want to manifest it.
And that is perhaps the most misunderstood thing, and we'll talk about this more in later episodes, about metaphysical beliefs and mysticism and the New Age community and spirituality and however you want to say it. People have this belief that it's all fluffy bunny, rainbows, and sunshine.
And angel wings.
It is
and angel wings. Angel wings.
Yes. It is perhaps the most challenging path to follow. And it's not easy, because as opposed to what people want, which is Harry Potter, instantaneous, these things take time to manifest. Whether you're doing a vision board for the laws of attraction, or whether you are getting rid of illness in your body, these things are not going to be, think about it at Monday and on Tuesday you're cured, or say you want a new car on Monday and Tuesday there's a Mercedes in your driveway. They're going to take a lot of energy, a lot of thought, a lot of dedication and commitment, and just like you said, you may have to lose friends. You may have to lose family. And it may be hard at the time, but understand that you are working through the universe at that point to rid yourself of everything that may have been causing the very thing that you're trying to get rid of.
Exactly. And sorry, just one other point, which I find even now, I find quite, it's a situation I get in quite often is when I've had 3 very good friends, one very good, she was like my soul sister, who all been diagnosed by a doctor with the illness, and 2 of them within 3 months died. My soul sister, I actually said to her a fortnight before, because she understood all about, sort of quantum level and the spiritual aspect, and she'd lived with anger all her life, and she understood that she could actually heal herself, but she said, yes, I could. She said, I don't have the strength. She actually didn't have. She said, I want to go. I've had enough of being in the world. And so although she knew she could turn it around, even on her deathbed, she knew she could, if she was still breathing, there was hope. She knew, but, then she chose to go. But people are diagnosed with it, and no disrespect to doctors, because they do a fantastic, amazing job with the knowledge that they have. There is this new science. It is filtering through. There's a lot of information coming out now. It's all over the internet. People can get it if they want. But to be in that situation where there's absolutely nothing I can do, I can't sort of, I can only be who I am. And and there's people believing what they're being told to be truth and not actually,
And that brings us back to the whole thing at the beginning, which is how we can bridge this gap between science and spirituality. And I think you brought up a point that maybe you weren't planning on doing, and that's for the individual. If you want to live more spiritual but still be in this scientific world and not be in the woo-woo, fluffy, she whatever that is out there, you have to be very cognizant of what you choose to believe and what you choose to bring into your thoughts. And if there are any medical professionals that are listening to us now, you have to be very careful on how you speak to your patients and be open to things that may have not been scientifically sound or proven when you first got your degree 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, because there were advancements being taken all the time. And I think that's a good point to end on. And how do we bridge the gap between science and spirituality is just be open to learning something new. Ask yourself the question, what do I know or what don't I know, the knowing of which would change everything.
Everything.
If you're a doctor, ask yourself what benefits, what sources, what ways can I help my patient heal that I don't know, the changing of which, the knowing of which would change everything. If you are a priest or a rabbi or a religious person, ask yourself the question, is there something about science that I don't know, the knowing of which would change everything? And I would challenge those people to go one step further and say, ask yourself the question, is there something about God and the nature of God that I don't know, the knowing of which could change everything? Now, that's about all the time that we have for today, folks. I do want to thank you for joining us. We'll be here every 2 weeks, just me and Katie. We may have a special guest. We hope you enjoyed today. It was a little rough at times, but we'll get better. Katie,
that was good. I enjoyed it. It was great. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Katie. Folks, we want to thank you very much for joining us. If you missed any part of this broadcast, you could just go to YouTube and catch the whole thing again. We will put the link up for this on my Facebook page, on the Group of One Facebook page. If you want to get to know Katie and I a little bit better, the Group of One better, go to their Facebook page, Facebook Group of One, like that page. Come to my page, Gary Karp Coaching. Like that page. You will be able
Just like all the pages.
You'll be able to follow all of us and
Or don't follow any.
Well, whatever we're going to call this. I don't think we actually named it yet, but we'll come
don't.
But
I was going to say, sorry. I was going to say, don't follow us, because that would still be the right choice.
Well, yes, for them it's the right choice. For us, it may not be.
Well, it will be. At some level, it will be.
No, we want people to follow us because we want to share our knowledge and expand this conversation.
Well, I'm not bothered, really.
In any case, folks, we hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. We're a little kooky, as you can tell. The conversation will get a little bit better, but both Katie and I love the sound of our own voices, so we have to figure out exactly how to manage the conversation. And I am going to sign off right now, and I'll give Katie the last word.
Yes, if anybody's got anything that they'd like us to sort of like talk about a bit more in depth, then yes, don't forget to perhaps on our Facebook page, or better still, the meetup link. I'll post the meetup link under the video, and then you can, if you can, it's a free site to join, and then you can post all your questions or anything on there, and that'd be great. Also, if you do join the meetup site, you'll be notified of the next video chat we do in 2 weeks' time. So, and that's about it. So, thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Katie. And until about 2 weeks, which would be what, January 27th, at around the same time. We hope you have a great time. Enjoy yourself, and remember, we're all one. Thanks very much, folks. Have a great evening.